Okay, I'm going to start just with the general overview. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining our second brief that is going to present some key takeaways from the research that we did on the waste management issues in Hong Kong. My name is Lucia. I am the program manager of the Green Hospitality. And today here with me is Camille Fabre, who is our lead researcher, and she will lead the webinar moving forward. I'm going to just say a few words as we still wait for the rest of the people to connect about Green. So Green Hospitality is a program of soap cycling, which is a charity here in Hong Kong that has been working with hotels to repurpose their waste soap into new soap for people who need it, and also to help recycle the plastic bottle amenities, essentially. And Green Hospitality was born in 2018 when Soap Cycling received funding from the Sustainable Development Fund to do some outreach events and activities with their key stakeholders, which were hotels. And so Green Hospitality hosted a first conference in 2019 in April, which was very well attended and very well received by the community and by all the stakeholders. And this year we're going to hold our second conference. Hopefully, we had to postpone to September. So 24th of September will be our second conference for Green Hospitality. And we hold other activities such as hackathon to innovate for better solutions in the industry. We also do research. That's what Camille does. That's what we are talking about today. So we try to analyze policies and things that work or don't work, bring to you the case studies or good practices so that we could learn from each other on how we can make the industry more sustainable. And besides that, we also do industry think tanks. So we gather the key stakeholders to discuss topics such as plastic and plastic use across the board. So from producers to those who manage the waste, to those who actually use it in hotels or restaurants. We had already a think tank about plastic. We're going to have another one about food waste and other topics. So we work closely with those stakeholders. So I think our main mission is to really focus on advancing the knowledge, so do the research, and then connecting the people. So really building collaborations and alliances and partnerships. And then finally also bringing the solutions. So be it innovations or bringing to Hong Kong and other places here in Asia, the innovations that we need to make the industry better. And so now I would like to pass the word to Camille, who's going to run you through our second research, which deals with the topic of the waste management in Hong Kong. Just last housekeeping things. If you have any questions, we're going to have a Q&A session after Camille finishes presentation. But if anything comes to your mind during the presentation, please don't feel shy, put it in the chat and we're going to address it towards the end. And also if you're experiencing any sort of problems with connectivity or anything, or you cannot hear us, please again, you can use the chat and I'm going to try to help to manage the chat. So now I'm going to pass the word to Camille. Camille, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lucia, for introducing me. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to share my screen right now to have the presentation. Lucia, can you tell me if you can see it well? It's
yes,
okay?
I can.
Great.
Yes.
Great. So I'm happy to be here again with you to present our second context sheet. So context sheets are resources for the industry, but also for anyone who is interested in the waste issue in general. So the goal of these reports is to give keys to understand the waste issue and what to do about it. So talking about keys, tourism and hospitality is one of the 4 key industries in Hong Kong. So as you can see, it's quite an important sector. And the 3 other sectors are financial services, trading and logistics, and professional services and other producer services. So the tourism and hospitality industry accounted for 4.5% of the GDP in 2018. And to give you an idea and a comparison of what it is like, it was roughly the GDP share of the agriculture sector in Brazil the same year. But however, we didn't find recent data in Hong Kong about the waste produced by the industry. And the last study we found dated back to 2001, so like 20 years ago. So we took a proxy and found that the hospitality industry was creating what is called commercial waste. So it's one of the three components of Municipal Solid Waste, or MSW. So as you can see here, household waste in blue is quite important, but it stayed quite steady. It decreased in share throughout the year, whereas the commercial waste in green here, dark green, augmented throughout the years. So the share of commercial waste that is created in Hong Kong is increasing. Then we were wondering, so if participating to 4.5% of the GDP is enough to be part of the very selective club of the 4 key industries, why don't we see the hospitality sector as a key actor on the waste issue when we know it produces so much waste? So as you must all know, with great power comes great responsibilities. And this report is about the great powers the hospitality industry has regarding alleviating the waste burden in Hong Kong. So what we're going to see now is that, yes, there is a waste problem in Hong Kong. So we will see that in the first section, we wanted to understand what is the situation regarding waste management in Hong Kong, what are the infrastructure, what is the amount of waste created, all of that to give a little bit of context. Second, we looked at all the waste that the hospitality industry was producing, all the types of waste. And we looked at which additional positive impacts the hospitality industry can have if it reduces this type of waste. And third, we wanted to show that sustainability is actually the way to go in order to do business in the hospitality industry today, and especially in Hong Kong. So first, let's have a look at the situation in Hong Kong. So during the research for the report, there was a very interesting study into which I stumbled upon, which digged into archives and explains the evolution of waste management in Hong Kong for the last 150 years. It's really interesting. We talk about it in the report, but I really encourage you to read it. It's in the sources of the report that you can find it. So fast forward to the present now. Here is where we stand now. So as you can see on the left side of the slide, the EPD has set a very ambitious target for waste reduction. So the target is the yellow part, and the green is what's happening in reality. And as you can see, we're really not even close to get close to the targets. Like, it's really on the other side of the scale. And Hong Kong produces every day more than 11,000 tons of garbage. So yes, TPD, what you see here, it's tons per day. So in 2000, Hong Kong was producing more than 9,000 tons per day, and in 2018, more than 11,000 tons per day. So now if we look at how we deal with all this waste, how efficient is the solid waste management infrastructure in Hong Kong, it is quite worrying too. So far, Hong Kong has been relying on 3 sanitary landfills. So they're called sanitary because the waste is covered with dirt, so it restrains the leakage into the environment, and the water and greenhouse gases that are produced by the anaerobic process of the decomposition of the waste are also gathered, and they are treated. So there is no leakage of water, like wastewater, or greenhouse gases by this landfill. So they're really state-of-the-art in terms of technology. The problem is that they were supposed to be full in 2015, 17, and 2019. So this is a big problem because what do we do with the waste now, right? So let's look at other disposal options. So first, you can recycle waste. but the problem is that in Hong Kong, there is virtually no recycling. So this is due to many factors, structural factors. One of these is that there is no manufacturing sector to use the resource that is produced out of the recycling. So far, recycling in Hong Kong has meant exporting. So nowadays it is changing a little bit, especially after the Chinese ban that happened on waste imports in 2018. And for example, there is a private PET and HDPE recycling plant opening at the end of the year. But as there is no manufacturing sector locally, the material produced will be sent to Europe. So the lack of market, the lack of financial incentives also from the government, the inefficient waste source segregation, and the high price of the land makes recycling in Hong Kong very unattractive economically. You can also burn waste. So in the past, there has been many incinerators in Hong Kong, like I think there were 4 or 3 in the 60s, but due to their fumes, they closed quite shortly actually after they've been built. And now there is a new incinerator that is going to be built in 2024 that will produce energy. So it's going to be a WTE plant, waste to energy. But it won't be enough to process even half of the dry waste Hong Kong produces. So dry waste is everything that is not food waste, everything that is not organic. And finally, to treat that organic waste that you cannot incinerate, you can make compost. And for that, so 5 to 6 plants to process food waste are on their way, but there are no large-scale composting facility yet. So each of these plants will be able to process between 200 and 300 tons per day out of the 3,600 tons produced every day in Hong Kong. So it's a really, really small share that is going to be able to be processed by these plants, each plant. But at the end, when they're all going to be built, it's going to be significant. The problem is that, so one is already operational, it's the O Park 1. The second is late, it was supposed to be built in 2018, but now I think it's going to be in 2022. And in the project of these plants, it was in the government's food waste plan, they don't say an end date for the completion of this project. So I couldn't find like when all these plants are going to be built. So that's why we need to act. And by reducing its waste, the hospitality industry has the potential to do way more than just saving landfill space. So in the next slides and in the report, we go quickly over the main types of waste the industry generates. So mainly food waste, plastic waste, and other dry waste like glass and metal. Because each type will be the subject of a dedicated green hospitality report in the future. So let's have a look first at food waste. So food waste is generally a big deal when it comes to environmental impact. So you need resources, land and fertilizers to grow crops, you need transportation, and food waste produces methane when it decomposes in landfill. And methane is a gas that is some people say, like, I've read 20 times, I've read 80 times, so I don't really know, but it's way more potent than CO2 in terms of greenhouse gas effect. So this is why reducing food waste comes first in this list, as you can see, to reduce carbon footprint, which I was quite surprised by actually. So for Hong Kong, so it's also the first source of waste for hotels and restaurants. So that's why it's quite important too. And for Hong Kong particularly, reducing food waste could have a tremendous positive impact. So first, so as you can see, despite government campaigns, food waste still quadrupled compared with 2000 levels. So obviously campaigns should be backed up by something else. And so the first positive impact that food waste can have is but that by giving still edible food to people in need, it would help the 20% of the population that lives under the poverty line in Hong Kong. So these were figures from 2018, but it means that there are a lot of people in Hong Kong in need, and just wasting food that is still edible really doesn't make sense. Then, so it's important to reduce food waste in Hong Kong because there is no proper waste segregation in Hong Kong. So, and food waste contaminates all the other waste. So for example, organic waste makes incineration less efficient. So if we don't sort the food waste, then the new incinerator that is going to be ready by 2024 will be less efficient. And also recyclable material becomes useless and ends up in landfill when contaminated by food waste. So food waste is really important, and you need to really segregate it at the source. And finally, as there is no agriculture sector in Hong Kong either, there is no local market for compost. But this is really an untapped resource because, as we can see in South Korea, for example, where they have a very efficient food waste management system, they still use this food waste in small urban farms to grow crops, mushrooms in the basements. And in Hong Kong, these alternatives are budding as well. You have several companies in Hong Kong doing that as well, using the roofs, for example, to grow crops. And also the compost can be used directly by the restaurants. Some of the restaurants do that to grow their own vegetables. So then the question of plastic waste. So when it comes to plastic waste, you know that hotels produce a lot of single-use plastics because of convenience. There is a lack of impulse from the policy side in Hong Kong. And even if the landfills are controlled, so as I said, they're sanitary, so everything is done so as to reduce the leakage in the environment, but still the Hong Kong waters are polluted by its own plastic. It's not only the fact that Hong Kong is situated in the Pearl Delta River. This is not only why there are plastics in the waters in Hong Kong, it's also because of the own city's waste. Especially because of the heavy rains or during the typhoon seasons, where researchers have found a big increase of plastic waste in the water after the rains and the typhoons. So in the report, we wanted to make a case of how hotels could be leading the change in reducing plastic, and even go all the way into being the first movers in the establishment of a circular economy, because the hospitality industry has been leading the way before. And this is the case, for example, for the dry wastes, for the glass bottles. So in the case, for example, of, it's the case for glass bottles. So the recycling of glass bottles was an initiative of the Hong Kong Hotels Association. And just as this case shows, we believe that the industry can impulse change at a more systematic level by doing these kind of initiatives. And finally, our third part of the report covers the opportunities that the hospitality industry in Hong Kong can get from another type of tourism than the current model. So far in Hong Kong, a majority of the tourists are coming from mainland. I think it's 78% in 2018. And they stay very short time. They stay less than 24 hours, and mainly for the purpose of doing shopping. So the government is aware of this dependency on this type of tourism, and they're trying to change that. And this past year, we really saw the limits of this model based on short-term consumption tourism. So what we explain in the third section of the report is that there is a global demand for another type of tourism, and that Hong Kong has the natural resources to develop it. So as you can see here, 40% of Hong Kong landmass is composed of country parks and special areas, whereas the city only covers 25%. So really, Hong Kong can tap into these natural resources. Of course, it needs to be intelligently done so as not to harm the environment and the beautiful parks that Hong Kong has. But this type, and this is why this type of ecotourism also comes with high standards in terms of sustainability, because the new tourists that are looking for this type of new type of tourism, they are really they really like want high standards when it comes to sustainability, and today the guests are ready to pay the price difference for that. So it's really a question of change of attitude, change of tourism model that we would like to advocate for here. So that's it for the short summary of this this report. It was really a great pleasure to write it. It was really interesting. I learned a lot about Hong Kong and Hong Kong waste management system, and I hope that you did too. If you want more details, so please read the report. And now, if you have questions or remark, I would love to have your insights on this topic. And I let the floor to Lucia.